And good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Coming up over the next 2 hours, we'll talk about what's going on in high school basketball and hockey and a couple of special guests. Coming up at 6:20, our coach guest for this week, the head boys basketball coach at Wausau East High School, Dan Garrett. Lumberjacks are now 11-2 on the season, 3-2 in the Wisconsin Valley Conference after a win against West last night. And then at 7 o'clock, our student-athlete guest for this week, and also from the East-West twin bill last night, as we'll be joined by Wausau West senior Kelly Cray. Cray had 20 points last night, helping the Warriors rally past Wausau East 51-44. So again, Dan Garrett coming up at 6:20, and Kelly Cray at 7 o'clock. Our guest tonight here on the Big High School Sports Show, and Jeff Gress, really now into the mix of the conference. A lot of conference activity, a little bit lighter last night because some of the Valley games were postponed due to the weather in the southern part of the area. But right now, you're looking at some of these conferences starting to kind of work themselves out.
Yeah, exactly the time you want to be at and the time you want to be. You get to be a spectator or be part of what you want to watch, what you want to learn. Because I think it's a big deal to see how these teams start jockeying for position in the conference. That's when it becomes a lot of fun for me on my end, what I get to see.
Well, let's jump right in. Let's talk about the Wisconsin Valley Conference, where we stand right now. There's still two undefeateds. Stevens Point and Marshfield are 3-0 in the conference. Spash is undefeated on the season, 12-0. Marshfield 11-1. Then you have Wausau East and Wausau West at 3-2 in the conference. Lumberjacks 11-2 overall. Wausau West 9-4. Then DC Everest at 1-3 in the league. They're 5-8 overall. Wisconsin Rapids and Merrill still looking for their first conference wins. Red Raiders 0-3, Merrill 0-3. 2-9 for Rapids overall, 4-6 for the Merrill Blue Jays. And looking at the activity for the past week, let's start with Stevens Point. I was, again, it looks like a team that's really rolling into shape. That, beating Merrill by 40. Again, Merrill has had their ups and downs this season, but still, for Stevens Point to knock off the Jays 71-31, Jared Seas had 18 points. Baraka McAleen had 15 for Stevens Point. Carter Body 11 for Merrill. Spash was supposed to play Marshfield in that big one last night, so we would have had a lot more to talk about.
Right.
But and then Marshfield. They defeated Brookfield Central in a non-conference game on Saturday, 88-80. Brooks Hinson 34, Chris Pohl 21, Landon Lee 20 points, 11 assists. It's unfortunate that game was postponed. It's going to be made up later in the month. But both Spash and Marshfield, and the thing that also jumps out is we've talked a lot about both, during the winter and even back to the fall when I was doing football, about how some of the Valley teams were looked down upon, I think, for teams to the east and to the west. But when you look at Stevens Point, Marshfield, East and West, all with really good overall records, it does look like in boys basketball, the Valley has an opportunity to do some good things, not only within their conference, but maybe when the postseason gets underway.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a big deal to get out of your conference a little bit to test the waters and see. And you got those top four teams have really solid records. For Marshfield, they seem to do it a little bit both ways. They outscore you sometimes. They play solid team defense, putting up 88 points against Brookfield Central's. There's a lot of baskets there, but they're sitting atop the conference with that 3-0 unblemished mark. For Spash, they just continue to roll. They haven't lost a game yet. Even in your conference, you don't take anybody lightly, whether they're on the top or the bottom. And every night it seems to be a war because the conference is a big deal. So when you can go out and handle a team as they did against Merrill within your own conference, that makes a statement. Getting back to your thing where they're not playing each other right now, the game got postponed between Marshfield and Spash. That's harder down the road. I don't know how far down the road it is, but as it gets to season, you go back to back, and there's a lot more pressure and stress that way. It's nice to have some of those games spaced out that way.
And by the way, real quickly, it's been postponed for more than 2 weeks until the 29th of January. So that means those teams will face off twice in the last few weeks of the regular season.
Yeah, and that's to my point is it gets a little trickier that way when you're bad, because that's for the conference title. It could be one game there that makes a big difference. But again, for East, nice overall mark at 11-2. It had a big win to create some separation against West last night, and West still doing good things. They're 9-4 overall, and you're going to run into some of those inconsistencies as the season goes on, and it's how you polish and get through them in practice and rectify them the next time you see a team. I think that's a big deal. So those top 4 teams really making a statement, and I think Everest can shake some things up a little bit too, even though they're a little bit behind those other teams right now.
Speaking of East and West, East, I thought 2 big wins. That game against Rapids. Again, Rapids is, I think, an improved team this season.
Yep.
East was able to pull away in the second half, win 69-49 on Friday. Jesse Napgazik, 22, Charlie Cayley, 12 points, 20 boards. And then, as you said last night, a game that we had right here on Bull Falls Radio, Lumberjacks beat Wausau West 90-52. Napgazik, 21 points, Cayley, 15 points, 10 rebounds. Brady Prohoda and Caden Worth, 12 points each. Isaac Roswadowski, 10, so 5 players in double digits. Brett Butala had 15. And for Wausau West, they were missing Griffin Lang, and again, we were talking before the show started, and it was not a case they knew he was going to be out for a long time in the preparation for this game. It was a huge loss for the Warriors. They had beat DC Everest for the first time in 6 years Friday, 69-59, so a big win there with Butala with 26, Lucas Hager 17, Griffin Lang 14 in that game. And then last night, it was just, it did not look like the normal West team. Again, their defense has Coach Nate Lemons talked about in our post-game interview, was not at the level they expect. When you lose somebody like Lang, who is more than just the numbers that fill a score sheet, very difficult situation, I thought, for West.
Yeah, well, anytime a key cog goes out due to sickness or injury and you have prepped a game plan a certain way, it takes guys back. It takes the coaching staff back a little bit, and you've got to fight through it and put on the happy face and make sure the kids are ready and prepared. And for the players, it can roller coaster that game a little bit. And sometimes it works out great because somebody else is like, I'm going to fill the shoe and fill the void. But I watched that game last night and listened to it on the radio, and I was just. West wasn't gelling like they had been up until that point. For East, very balanced attack. A lot of weapons, a lot of scoring punch. They're difficult to defend, and when they match that, when they played, solid defense last night against West in the half-court set and the pressuring and a little bit of both, it makes them, they're a dangerous team. I mean, they got a lot of weapons.
Yeah, I thought that was the best defense East has played in a long time, to be honest. Yeah. It was really, I thought they had an intensity on both ends, and it felt like when they got the momentum, they started to play with a looseness, and that was a good looseness, not a bad looseness, a good looseness they got, and that helped them build that lead. And as I said as well, these 2 games, I thought, they needed these games because of the loss against Everest at home. If they want to be in the mix in the top part of the Wisconsin Valley Conference, if they lose last night, they're 2-3 in the conference. I mean, that would have been very tough to overcome. But getting those 2 wins, and now they're tied for 3rd. And, of course, Spash and Marshfield playing each other twice, and East getting an opportunity a couple of times against Stevens Point as well. But those, I thought, again, very impressive overall record, but I thought they needed those wins in the conference to kind of maybe set a foundation.
Yeah, well, you want that consistency not only from your non-conference schedule, where obviously they're doing damage, to find it within the conference when they go from game to game there. And I think it helps solidify that. I mean, the pressure was on to put yourself in a good spot, and they did that with two big victories, and even in terms of the margin of the points that they were able to create that separation. And I agree with you. I thought last night the nice thing I saw them is when they kind of blew that game up in the end of the first half, they kept going. It didn't stop. They came out in the second half and just kept the foot on the accelerator. And that's what you want to see out of your team is we know how to punch it as long as we can to finish the games off.
Also last night, Everest had a non-conference game at Chippewa Falls, and Everest won 88-80. But the big note is Cohen Preby, boy, 37 points last night. I mean, he's got that capability. He filled it up big time for Everest. Cade Felch, 24. Casey Studeman, 12. Everest now 5-8 overall, 1-3 in the conference. It was I thought a tough loss. West, I thought, really beat them. It was a little surprising in a sense that I think it was maybe even a little bit wider than the score would indicate. I think for Everest, it's still a team that is not quite there yet in terms of finding exactly what this team is, because they do have some kids like Cohen Preby and Studeman and Felch who are very capable. But sometimes for some teams it takes a little longer. I still think this is a team that could provide, with these teams at the top, one of those. We already saw it with East when they beat them by 18. That's still a team that I don't think I would want to see as either a team in the conference looking for a championship or as a low seed in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, if you played Everest, you can't underestimate them. I mean, they have the pieces to take the game away from you if you don't execute the way and play to the capabilities and the success level you feel your team should be at. From what I've seen out of the scores, they just haven't found that consistent range. They win a couple good ones in the Valley, then they drop a couple. They win a couple good non-conference, and they play a tough team, and it's a little harder. So I think a good win for them against Chippewa Falls. But they have Merrill in the next game, and I think they're going to need to go solidify that game to get back on. I mean, they're well coached. All the other coaches say that they have good players. I think they have that potential to you want to when you're not getting all the wins you want to go kind of take that out and make somebody else's season a little messy. And I think they're not a team you're going to want to overlook.
Great Northern Conference, Mosinee is undefeated, the last undefeated in the GNC at 5-0, 11-1 overall. Rhinelander and Lakeland 4-1 in the conference. Medford 3-2, Antigo 1-4, Pines 1-5, Tomahawk 0-5. And I guess the game was last night. Mosinee and Rhinelander. Mosinee won 70-58. Landon Tomer 17 points, 12 rebounds. Balanced attack for Mosinee. Treve Stoffel, 16. Keegan Jersley, 13. Devin Feck, 21 for Rhinelander. But to go up there in that little gym up in Rhinelander, always a tough place to play. And Mosinee has been, I think, consistently able to do that so far this season.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal that they came out and kind of you're holding the first place in your conference. You don't want the second place team to touch you. So when you get those opportunities, whether it's in your own gym or on the road, you want to take care of business on that first game, because I think it puts a lot more pressure on the team in the second game if they're still hanging around. So, Mosinee came out 70-58 in somebody else's gym where, you spot that other team a couple extra points for home court advantage. And, still the next game that's nice too is it pops around, they get the next team that's hanging around and they can start setting some separation for what they want to establish to try to be the conference champion in the Great Northern.
And the thing was, Rhinelander came off a really impressive win. They went to Minocqua and defeated Lakeland 79-54. So, again, sometimes it's when you play a team, and it felt like, man, coming off that kind of game, that was going to be, I think, a tough one for Mosinee. But, again, Mosinee, I think, expected to win all their games in the conference. But the way they're doing it is I thought, was, again, an impressive season so far for Mosinee.
Well, yeah, you talk about their balance when you list the stats of some of those guys. I was that a couple weeks ago. They were one of the teams with, I can't remember if they were one of the teams with 6 guys in double figure.
Yeah, real close.
You know what I mean? So that's tough to come up with a game plan against that when you got such a balanced scoring attack. And I think for Mosinee, you got guys that can get to the rim and slash. You got guys that'll go around and bang. You got guys that can play the guard position. So I think they're setting themselves up nice, and a good solid win over in Rhinelander last night.
Merriwood South, Marathon 7-0, 12-0 overall. Auburndale 7-1, 11-2 overall. Stratford and Edgar 5-2 in the conference. Stratford 8-3, 9-2 for Edgar. Assumption 2-4 in the conference, 4-7. Newman 0-7 in the conference, 1-10 overall. I guess we'll start off last night. Marathon went to Auburndale, and another impressive performance for the Red Raiders, 60-39. Not anything that blew you away numbers-wise. You had Grant Ward, 16-11. Tyler Underwood, 15. They did a great job, obviously, defensively. Only one player for Auburndale in double figures, Caden Anderson with 14. But I guess you start right there. Marathon, again, another notch in what's been an incredibly impressive 12-game start to the season.
Well, when you can look back at the stat sheet at the end of the night, like for Auburndale, they hold their 2 leading scores under their season averages. You're doing a nice job both for the individuals that are manning those guys up and for the team on the team defensive side. And again, Marathon, as they have been over the years, it's just steady. It's consistent, and going into Auburndale is not an easy place to play. It's a packed night. The community comes out and supports those players in Auburndale. So it's a tough environment to go get one. And again, those are the ones you want to get right away when you're fighting off the top of that conference with both undefeated records. And when you can go to the other person's gym and get it, it's nice to know that the next meeting is going to be in your own house. So I thought, just caught the tail end of that one, but a nice win overall and a signature win with the 21-point gap on the score differential.
What about elsewhere in the Merriwood South? You got Stratford and Edgar both off to good starts. You got Assumption and Newman looking to get something going. What else jumps out either in terms of the results or your thoughts on these teams?
Well, you see, I think just overall, going back to the Valley too, with the top 4 teams in each one of those sides, just some nice overall records. I mean, you got teams with, West has 9, East has 11. Marshfield and Spash have their top wins, and then here you got another couple teams with 12, 11, 9 wins again. So what kind of jumps out as me is we got some very good basketball going on in this area. Secondly, though, that battle's what it is. Marathon, I think, is starting to set themselves a little bit ahead. Now, every year I've coached in there, Edgar will always give Marathon their best shot, so you can't take them lightly. Those games get pretty physical. The cities are close. It's a rivalry game. But, Edgar, for having a new coaching staff and co-coaches, off to a nice start at 9-2 in winning, some of the tougher games when they played the Norse versus Athens. And I went out and had Newman come into their place and got a win there. So I think, I think Marathon's up top there, and Auburndale, Edgar, Stratford are looking to war it out with, just from what I've seen in games, Auburndale, Edgar kind of sitting at that second tier.
And I also wanted to say something about Newman, because obviously the state champions a year ago, and then lose all those incredible seniors and now struggling. There's no shortcuts to success. In a sense, you have a couple of sophomores in Quincy Fender and Lucas Piffner who are putting up pretty good numbers on a nightly basis. They don't have currently a lot of offensive help, but I recall back when the group that went to the state championship a year ago, in their first year, they lost a lot of games. I think they won 6 games the entire season. Obviously, they were freshmen at the time, but I think that if Newman is able to wrap some more scoring talent around Piffner and Fender, there is a road back, but it's going to take time.
Well, yeah, as with any young team, as coaches know, you have to build that foundation with them. They have to understand, because younger kids sometimes it's hard because they still know they got more time. So there's not a ton of pressure there yet to know that my days are counted and I'm going to graduate before I know it, and I got to accomplish what I want to accomplish here in my sports experiences. So I think that's tough because there's not always that immediate moment of I got to get going right away here. And for sophomores, when sophomores are the main guys that are doing the damage, whether hitting jump shots, taking the basket, sometimes it's hard to fill in the void of where's that leadership coming from, because the production and the stat hounds are coming from our younger guys, but we're the old, it's a tough mix. So I think it's going to take them some time to find their identity, but the bottom line is they're getting some experience, they're figuring out the right and the wrong things to do, and I think that can only void as good things going forth.
Merriwood North has Rib Lake 9-2 overall, 5-2 in the conference. Then Phillips 3-3 in the league. Prentice 3-4. Abbotsford and Athens 2-5. Chewabigan 0-6. Rib Lake got the crossover win against Assumption on Friday, and Rib Lake rolled past Phillips 68-50 on the road last night. Again, Rib Lake maybe just a little bit outside of our general area, but it's always interesting to see where. I thought coming in maybe Athens would be a little bit better than they are. They're 2-5 and now struggling in the conference. But Rib Lake is actually somebody that's probably played Marathon as well as anybody, but they played earlier this season in their little gym. Rib Lake looking impressive again. That game last night, 68-50 at Phillips, the second place team of the conference. I thought was something worth noting.
Well, yeah, I think they're going to be a team twofold. I think they're going to come give you some games on the road, as they've shown they've done with teams. As much as when you got to go up in their little cracker box of a gym, they're gonna play to that advantage and that strength that they have of the size of their gymnasium. It just suffocates you a little bit. So, and we had heard that they have some good players and they're doing well, and it shows in their 9-2 mark overall. For Phillips, maybe just a tier down from what you're seeing out of Rib Lake. So Rib Lake trying to take command of the top of the conference. I think they said it with a little bit of a signature win in the discrepancy of winning by 18 over the second place team in the conference. But, they got to fill in the South games too and see where some of those end up. For Athens, they took one out when they lost to Prentice Tuesday night, 62-58. in their home gym, I think it was. So that, that kind of sending you down. It looks like wins are coming a little bit less, but they're another team too. They graduated a lot of kids from last year. So again, you got to, plus it takes teams longer than others to find that identity when you got a whole new lineup in there, especially if the kids are younger. And I know for Athens too, they start a couple sophomores. So.
And finally, CWC East, Whitburn in second place in that conference. They're 4-1, 6-4 overall, behind only undefeated Bonduelle. Whitburn survived in their last game on Friday, needing overtime. In fact, 2 overtimes to defeat Manawa 49-47. Jet Rogowski had 25 points in that game for Whitburn. The boys and the girls are kind of similar, where at times it doesn't look all that pretty, but they're winning games and they're putting themselves in a position at the top of their conference.
And Bonduelle is always in the way.
That is true.
In both, but again, you gotta. It's fun when you can look back at the end of the night, I think, and you get in an overtime game, or you get in a tight one where you finished it out strong, where you had to fend a team off and only win by 2, or you get that last second shot. Those are just some great moments of learning experience. So for Wittenberg, that Manawa game, no matter where Manawa is in that conference, I think they're in the middle of the pack in that where are they?
They're 1-4 in the conference, but they're 7-6 overall.
Okay, so hey, anyways, it's conference play. So
and who have you played?
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm guessing they play Bonduelle.
If you can take that win in that double overtime game, I think that's a big deal. It just builds for things going on in creating that momentum and that consistency that coaches want as they want their teams to peak and then still not peak. You want to get to a certain point and then you still get a little greedy and you want to keep them going to get them being the best ball as they can down at the state games. We
have to take a quick timeout, but then coming up next, we'll have our first guest of the evening, the head boys basketball coach at Wausau East. Lumberjacks 11-2 overall. They're 3-2 in the Wisconsin Valley Conference after their big win against crosstown rival Wausau West last night. We'll talk to the head coach of the Lumberjacks, Dan Garrett, coming up next. Along with Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. It is the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's commercial printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services, whether you need vehicle graphics, offset, digital, large format, graphic design, or mailing. They print everything under the sun. No project is too big or too small, so give Sun Printing a call at 845-4911 or visit them online at sunprinting.com.
Winter sports are here. Align your young athletes and yourself with health by scheduling an appointment with Dr. Sarah at Shine Chiropractic in Rib Mountain. Stay in the game with our comprehensive 3-point neurological exam, safe for the entire family. Don't let the daily grind keep you and your student athletes on the sidelines this year. Call Dr. Sarah at 715-298-5104. That's 715-298-5104 in Rib Mountain today.
On Thursday night, the Newman Catholic High School girls basketball team plays host to undefeated Assumption. You can hear all the exciting action live on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO. And on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 5:50 and the opening tip at 6 p.m. Newman Catholic High School basketball on Bull Falls Radio is brought to you by Red Robin Restaurant, Sun Printing, the Clover Bell Credit Union, Graphic Packaging International, Shine Chiropractic, Menke Auto, Picks and Pieces, and the Newman Catholic Athletic Booster Club. It's Newman Catholic taking on Assumption in high school girls basketball. Thursday night, starting with the pregame show at 5:50 and the opening tip at 6 p.m. On your home for Newman Sports, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. And time for our head coach guest for this week. And very happy to welcome back to the studio the head boys basketball coach of Wausau East, Dan Garrett. And Coach, number one, thank you for coming.
You bet.
Number
Happy to be
2,
here.
congratulations on a big win last night. I guess I wished you too much luck when I saw you last night. I said not enough luck, but you didn't really need it last night at a good win against West. But I guess we'll start off with that game because obviously it's right 24 hours ago and a rivalry game. And me and Jeff were talking about it, and one thing that kind of jumped out, obviously, you put up 90 points, which is always a great number. I thought your defense was really good last night. Is that how you saw it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the past years, we've been kind of criticized for how we've played defense, and we've been building to get to this point. With the young players that we've had, and just building to get to this point. And last night was kind of a culmination of a lot of hard work and determination, and the guys executed the game plan perfectly, and we were really happy with the result.
And also, before Jeff jumps in, wearing his lumberjack red tonight, I notice.
Red's a good color.
Cardinals on it, though.
Yeah, that's where I got to work. But red's a good color.
But also in the game, as I was watching it, it felt like when things started to go well for your team, I said to Jeff as well that your team played with a looseness, but a good looseness. Sometimes there's a bad looseness where you get a little bit too loose with the basketball. But I thought it was a looseness where you saw opportunities. Your kids saw opportunities. They saw open shots. They weren't hesitating, and they were making a lot of them. It felt like as the game continued that the momentum was felt by your kids, and they really grasped that momentum.
Yeah, we kept talking about at halftime maturity. The second half, I'm going to see how mature we are as a team. Are we going to let them get back into it, or are we going to get to a point where we double up the lead? And we showed lots of maturity last night. We took care of the basketball. I think we had 3 turnovers or 2 turnovers at halftime, which I think we averaged about 7 or 8 a game this year. But that was a good number. We took care of the ball, and I think we shot like 72% yesterday too, which was crazy as well. But yeah, I mean, we showed some maturity last night, and that was the biggest thing I wanted to see is when you have a lead like that, can you be mature enough to keep that lead?
And how about your coach? We were talking off air, and we mentioned because when you were at Newman work, I was teaching there, so we talked enough. Mm-hmm. Now I got a nephew on the team. We still see each other enough, which is all good. And I just guys are older now. Yeah. You've always still been dealing with freshmen that you've built up, or sophomores, freshmen you built up, and it seems like the team never got old enough, fast enough. Yeah. And now you're dealing with juniors and seniors, and it just looks balanced, and it looks consistent, and it looks like the terminology is easy because you've been doing it together for so long. I mean, I got to imagine it's just not taking away anything from any other kids or players you coach, but it's just nice to have that reliability in these guys in what they bring to the game, and I think diversity that they bring to the game, and all your different players that play within your rotation.
Absolutely. Like we were talking about off air, there were several timeouts last night where I wasn't even talking the timeout. Isaac would talk in the timeout, or Jesse or Jaden. They would lead the timeout, and there's several times in practice where they're leading a drill in a practice, and we always tell them, if you guys are coaching each other and we kind of coach you as a secondary thing, that's where we want to be, and as long as they're communicating with each other, and they've been doing a great job doing that this year, huddling up when they get an opportunity to make sure everybody's on the same page. It's it's nice to have senior leadership. I have Isaac Rozwadowski and Caden Worth, who are 4-year varsity players for me and leaders, and I can rely on those guys in tough situations to make sure that their teammates are on the same page as well.
And how about your balance? Like, every time we look for description words of teams when we're talking about them, the word balance comes to mind out of your guys, because you got the big guy that'll thug around in the middle, and you can't take him for granted. You got some guys that are workhorses that'll dive on the ball and take charges. You got scorers from inside and out, and then you got guys that just, if I'm watching their body language and their work ethic, wherever they are in the rotation, they come. It just keeps going. It flows when they come in. So, I mean, you got to be happy with the balanced attack, and I think that's going to make you dangerous for whoever you play in the playoffs, and when you see these conference teams and whatever you got left in your non-conference schedule. It's just so many things, I think, to stop sometimes out of East basketball of what you've built with these guys.
I think the cool thing, about it is, these kids, they work hard. They work really hard, and I think they really bought into what we're trying to achieve this year. I think Caden Worth and Jack Barthos are kids who could probably start at other schools here in this area, and they've accepted their role of coming off the bench and kind of being sparks for us off the bench. a kid like Jaden, he could probably score more for us, but he's accepted his role of hey, I got to be more of a facilitator, and I'll hit shots when I need to. They've all kind of accepted their roles. A kid like Isaac, who's a lockdown defender, and he takes care of the ball for us and kind of gets us in the right places. They've all just kind of sacrificed, and sacrifice is one of our pillars. What are you going to sacrifice tonight? I ask them that before every game, and it may be playing time, it may be a shot, it may be anything, it may be your body because you're stepping in to take a charge. They're all willing to do whatever we ask them to do, and that's why we are in the position we are today.
Again, we're talking to Wausau East head boys basketball coach Dan Garrett here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. You talk about growth, and I think maybe last night was an offset of growth because of the crosstown rival Everest you played earlier this year. That was the first conference game. You guys came in with a whole bunch of momentum. I think that was just a couple of days after we had a chance to talk to Jesse Napgezik here. With excitement going into the conference, and Everest came in and knocked off your team. What did you guys learn from that game that maybe helped you? And I think the last week has been a really important week for your team to get the games against Rapids and West to put yourself in a really good spot in the conference. But what did you find out, I think, maybe in that game where it's like, we're doing really great, but we still have some things to learn, right?
So I think with Everest, that was really the first time that we had dealt with any adversity. We weren't hitting our shots, we weren't rebounding well, we weren't defending well, and we just never overcame that. We didn't deal with that well. So I think we learned from that. There's been games after that in Stratford. We didn't shoot the ball well. We fouled a lot. We didn't defend well, but we found a way to win. So I think, we lost that game against DC Everest, but we learned a valuable lesson of how to get through adversity and, still be able to win a game.
Okay, so Chad and I are breathing here to see who's going first. I was just jumping into the conference. I mean, every coach that coaches within the conference, we all think our conference is the best because you have to, and it's a dogfight. And you can't take it.
You preface that question the same way every week. You're going to have to mix it up just a little.
Well, let me talk. You took a breath,
week,
so
right?
I'm jumping in. Well, I asked Coach Lemons this too because how. I guess what are your thoughts on the conference this year? Because we see, obviously coaches see it a lot different than the average spectators do, and what do you think of it? I mean, it's always going to be tough. It's always a battle, but your thoughts on it from what you see out of these teams?
I think our conference from top to bottom is one of the best in the area. I mean, I'm going to say that, right? And I believe it because even a team like Maryland Rapids, you can't just walk in and say we're going to win that game. You're going to have to go out and execute whatever game plan you have, and those teams are going to always play hard. Rapids played us tough for most of that game, and then we kind of ran away with it midway through the second half. So there's no gimme games in our conference, and I'm not saying there's gimme games in other conferences, but you have to be prepared to play everybody. So I believe the Valley Conference is one of the best in the area.
Is it tough with some of the you got more than one crosstown rival? I mean, you got Everest and you got West, where some teams are like,
that makes it
don't
fun.
have any. Like across the rival is the next city that's 25 minutes away, and you got some right in the mix.
Well, it makes it fun because I know a lot of those kids as well. Just being around at tournaments and coaching youth basketball, so it's fun to play against kids and that you know.
Let's talk about a few of the young men you've touched on already, and it's good because to see them last night and be able to give some impressions I had and see if you can expand on them. Let's start with Charlie Cayley, because the thing that kind of jumped out to me is, he's a big kid, but he's not prototypical where you are going to keep him inside all the time. I was impressed the way that he was able to work outside and to be able to use some pretty good athletic ability as well. I was very impressed that he is a multifaceted kind of guy.
Yeah, Charlie works his tail off. He's one of the hardest workers on our team. If we have a late practice and we have to, and we're going to lift before practice, he stays after school. He's lifting before we go in to lift. Mm-hmm. So he's really worked at it really, really, really well, and he works at his game. He can handle the basketball, and I'm a type of guy that if I have a big guy that just sits down in the block, that's fine. I've had that with Dylan Buckberger a few years ago, but I really like guys like Charlie who can he can hit a 3-pointer if you need him to, and not clog up the lane if we got lots of guys who want to get in the lane. Charlie can play outside, he can play inside, and that's the type of big guy that works within our offense.
And talking about your offense, and you said you have a bunch of kids that are capable of scoring double digits. I mean, even last night I thought, not to throw him a softball here, but I thought when Rozwadowski got hot, that was a part of the game where you guys, it was basically around a 6-point game up to that point. All of a sudden, look up and it's about a 20-point game, and he's not the one that you would normally expect to go on a heater like he did.
Yeah.
In terms of trying to run your offense, how do you look at it? Do you look at making sure that a kid like Nap Geza gets his shots, or how does your offense work?
No, I don't like for it to be a focus of one person. We always say, take the shot, be you. Whatever, if you're a 3-point shooter, that's what you need to do. If you're a guy that gets to the hoop, that's what you need to do. So I don't necessarily, focus around one guy. Obviously, we want to get Jesse as many touches as we can, but I really don't. The guys and myself, we really don't care who scores the points. We just want to win the game. That doesn't matter to us. And to talk about that sequence with Isaac, that was a huge sequence. We always talk about. I'm a big Duke basketball fan, and Duke seems to always make a run with 3 minutes left to go in the first half, and we always kind of. In our minds, kind of think about that. How are we going to end the half? And I think when we ended the half, I think it was like a 7-point game, and we kind of ended the half and on a strong 13-0 run or something like that, and we were up 20 at half.
And then all of a sudden you roll it right to the buzzer too. I mean, you talk about a momentum where you guys get the buzzer on the 3-pointer and then go right to the locker room. I mean, you couldn't have drawn it up much better.
We actually ran right back out of there. It was a quick talk because I wanted them to get right back out of there because they were ready to go. They didn't want to listen to me talk any more strategy. So that was a huge sequence, and I think that sequence actually probably won us the game last night.
So the 2 Rapids and then West, and you just keep sliding yourself up in I think a great position because Marshfield and Spash have to play. I mean, it was postponed, but they got to play each other twice yet, and you're just you're sitting in there and you got to play Marshfield one more time and Spash twice so you can inflict your damage too. What do you think is the obviously there's a ton of good things your team's doing. What do you think is the biggest thing yet that your team needs to do? Whether it's more consistently or just an improvement to say we're going to go race for that conference title because we got to get a couple of these games. What do you want to see out of your team more, I guess?
For us, it's just mental focus, not necessarily, whatever the game plan is, not forgetting, what the game plan is. Like, coach, I forgot that we're supposed to be face guarding this guy. Or, in the past, we've struggled with that. Last night was kind of and even in Rapids, that was kind of one of the first times that we didn't necessarily struggle with that. We executed the game plan the entire game. And typically you kind of have those lows where you don't execute defensively or offensively. And I'm not saying we were perfect offensively last night because we got some things we got to work on, or even defensively. But that was probably our best defensive effort in my time at East.
Have you felt with an older group that you've been able to better, because some coaches will be like, well, they're smart, they're intellectual, I've had them a while, I can expand the playbook, or we're going to just talk a little deeper in terms of what we're going to do. I mean, have you thought you could go one way or the other where we're going to throw more of a mental edge at them, or we're going to expand their knowledge and give them more options?
Yeah, well, I'm not a play guy. I'm not a set guy. I mean, I think we have 3 sets that we run. I just want the kids to run offense and flow. But we want them to. We focus a lot on defense in practice. We do offense as well, but defense is probably 70-80% of practice because we know if you stop somebody, you're gonna and you can score, you're gonna be able to win the game. So we try to keep that the focus.
I'd like to take a step back and talk about the program as a whole because one thing that looking at your rosters and looks like the numbers are good at Wausau East right now, would you say?
Yeah.
And in terms of where the program is, because obviously you've now been back as the head coach for what year is this now that you've been back?
This is year 4.
Okay, it all runs together at this point, right?
4 years here. Yeah.
But how do you feel like where the program is right now? Because obviously you're off to a really good start this season. Obviously you got some great expectations for the rest of the year. But the health of the program as a whole, how do you feel about it?
I feel like we're in a really good spot. We have 4 teams. We have a JV3, we have a JV2. I think we have about almost 70 kids out, which is really good. So I'm pretty confident that we can continue rolling with things. We got a good young group. Our freshman group is really good. Our JV team has only lost 1 game this year, and they're pretty much sophomores and juniors. So I think the future of the program is going in the right direction, and not just with basketball at East. I think there's lots of sports going in the right direction. Girls basketball, I think, is going in the right direction. Football, wrestling, lots of different things at East, I think, is on the way up.
That's kind of where I wanted to go with the next question, because at East there had been a lack of stability within the head coaches for a number of years, and I think that led to a lot of the issues in terms of participation and also results on the fields or the court or what may be. Obviously, you come and provided some stability. We've seen more stability on the football field. You've been part of that as well. I don't think people can really understand how important that is to the success of a program as a whole.
Absolutely. I'm a relationship guy, and I feel like obviously the longer you're around, the better the stronger relationships you can build. And if a coach comes around, and this is a stepping stone type job, and you're not going to be able to build those relationships, and you're not going to get kids to come out because kids don't have that type of relationship with you. So, even when I'm not coaching basketball or coaching football, I'm at a baseball game, or
Right.
I think we're going to wrestling tomorrow, or I'm at a hockey match, or whatever it might be, just to make sure we're supporting everybody, and I make sure my team does that as well. And I think our culture is really changing over at East, and we're really involving a lot of our youth, and I think we're really going in the right direction.
And that's actually an interesting point when you look at the conference as a whole, because when you look at boys basketball in the Wisconsin Valley Conference, you've got yourself, obviously, who's been an East guy and wants to really build this program. You got Coach Pieper in Merrill, who's a Merrill guy and wants to build that program. Coach Lemons has been at West for now more than a decade.
Coach Fisher.
And again, a lot of these programs are with people that really have a connection. And ultimately, it probably makes your job a little harder because you're going to have solid programs up and down the Wisconsin Valley Conference. But for those of us looking for really entertaining basketball and looking for good teams that can make some noise as you move forward, it looks like right now the Valley, after you've been around it a long time. We've seen it for a long time. There were years, probably 15, 20 years ago now, where it was just a battle. I mean, back in the days before even the GNC and Rhinelander was there, it does feel like maybe the direction of the conference is going in a really good way.
Absolutely. I think there's lots of rivalry, or like budding rivalries, like us and Merrill. I think every time we get together, it's a rivalry type game. It's kind of the atmosphere that was last night. And you touched on it earlier, where you said you got a lot of rivals, and DC Everest and Wausau West and Merrill potentially. That makes it more fun. To go up to Merrill and have to play in an environment like that, or have to go to West last night and play in a really, really good environment and tough environment as well. Although maybe half the fans there were cheering for us. I think it's fun to be competitive, and I'm happy that we're finally at a point where we're sitting here talking about Wausau East at 11-2 being competitive in the Wisconsin Valley Conference.
And how big a deal is all that? I mean, you touched on it a little bit. I think it's a big deal when not only can coaches make they make their face available that much, they're investing in the kids. It's all about connections. I think that goes a long way. But for you yourself, being on that football sideline and helping them just fight to get out there in a varsity schedule. I mean, I don't think people often overlook how hard it was just to have the schedule and get the team to play and get these guys an opportunity. And you get to work with, I think, a chunk of the basketball guys a chunk of them in the rotation are
all 7 guys that I had returning. Yeah. Or football players.
Gotcha. So, I mean, that's got to be, I think, a little bit twofold, because it's kind of fun because, the head coach can take care of some of this, and I'm going to focus on this side of the ball, and, we're going to do it.
It's cool to be an assistant coach, too, Jeff.
Yeah.
Tyler Kramer does a great job as a football coach at East, and he does a great job of allowing us to be who we are as coaches, and I think it's cool to see kids in other sports and see how they respond to adversity in other sports, because then it helps me in basketball, see that, okay, he didn't respond to adversity. He didn't respond to adversity the way we wanted to here in this situation. Maybe I can try to set up the situation in the basketball court and walk him through that and how to respond. So I think it's a lot of coaches are coaching multiple sports over at East, and I think that's what's kind of helping with the changing culture. And our athletic director, Kurt Vanden Heuvel, does a great job as well with culture. And we meet once a month to talk about the culture at East and how we can continue making things better. And it's not just about sports; it's about the culture of the school as well.
When you look ahead now, and I know that coaches, it's always about, hey, you got Pines on Friday, but when you look at your Division II, you and Merrill, Division II, and all these other schools in the WVC are Division I, you obviously get tested. Mm-hmm. Do you look ahead and say, hey, this is kind of where we slot in? Do you look at some of the other schools in your bracket? How do you go?
I have not yet done that.
And I guess along the same lines, I mean, just generally, do you feel like this group has an opportunity to do something just beyond even the conference, because what we've seen so far, do you feel like this team has those intangibles to make a run in the postseason?
I do. I think we're just kind of scratching the surface. I think what you saw last night was kind of the beginning of something special, not necessarily, the culmination of it. So I do think this team has the ability to do something special. We just have to show that maturity that I talked about earlier, to be consistent. And really, when we're playing teams like Spash and playing teams like Marshfield, not losing by 20, not losing by 30, really, showing them that, hey, we're here to play as well. So we got another hump to get over with those two teams as well, to make sure we're showing that we're competitive with them. Because I think if we're showing that we're competitive with them, we can be competitive with anybody in Division II.
And going along those lines, and I guess I'm going out even farther in the future, because you guys have held consistent, and I know as coaches we do that, where if somebody's asked us to a tournament, we keep coming because we've been there. So you've been at Stratford for years, and you've played some of the non-conference games because we have one over there and one over here. Anything looking like into the future where you'll keep it consistent now off the top of your head, or are you looking to branch out to get something a little bit different? Because you usually have something over Thanksgiving and your Christmas one, and then you're not. Do you guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Eventually you feel like you owe somebody something, so you keep doing it. But then sometimes it's like, there might be a different change of pace to get this on a Saturday afternoon here. Are you even? I mean, and I know we're in the midst of something, and you want to keep rolling what you're rolling. But any thoughts on? Do you switch it up? Do you keep it the same?
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing is, I think when you're doing well, other tournaments and people maybe want you to come to their tournament.
Right, yeah.
And we've gotten some invitations to some Thanksgiving tournaments next year and some Christmas tournaments next year, some bigger events than maybe we've been to in the past. And that's because I think we were having some success this year. Yeah. Not that, we wouldn't go back to Stratford because, we feel like we're better than that. But I think that Stratford tournament is a really good tournament, and we had two really tough games. And we learned a lot about ourselves during that tournament. And I think having to come back from behind to beat Stratford the way we did really kind of propelled us into what you saw last night.
Anything else for the coach?
No, good luck. I like watching you guys, so I wish you didn't have that little downtime before from the Pines game to the next game. But you keep it, like you said, you keep it rolling in practice, you keep it lively, you keep those connections up, but sometimes kids need a little space to breathe too. So
absolutely,
congrats on the solid or the great season so far, and it's fun to watch.
Thank you.
By the way, you made for a tough broadcast last night. That's all I'll say.
I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not.
I would apologize.
I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry.
I just congrats on the success so far, Coach. It's always good to talk to you.
Appreciate it.
Best of luck going the rest of the way.
Thanks for having me.
Head Coach Dan Garrett of the Wausau East Lumberjacks. We're going to come back, have more. The Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 to 1230.
Impacts on prep sports this week, but we're hoping for some big games this weekend. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by NFHSNetwork.com. More high school sports news after this.
Do you ever wish you could be in two places at once? With homework, carpool, practice, and everything else, sometimes you just can't make it to every game. But the NFHS Network's streaming platform makes that a little easier. For just $11.99 a month, you can watch unlimited high school sports live and on demand, at home or on the go. You can watch online or on one of our mobile or connected TV apps. Visit NFHSNetwork.com and subscribe today to never miss another game.
After sailing through December with little to no postponements, this week brings a considerable amount of weather implications to high school sports, wiping out most of the schedule for Tuesday night in the lower half of the state. One game that did get played was a top 10 boys basketball showdown for early control of the Marywood South. Unbeaten and D4 second-ranked Marathon pulled away for a 60-39 win over 10th-ranked Auburndale, as 6'10 senior Grant Warren had 16 points to lead the Raiders. This weekend's schedule of games could be impacted by weather again, but if not, there's some elite matchups on the docket. Most notably, it's a 1-versus-1 showdown Saturday in De Pere, as the D1 top-ranked Redbirds will welcome in Division II top-ranked Wisconsin Lutheran. Also on Saturday, Division III's top-ranked squad St. Thomas More will host D4 third-ranked Kenosha St. Joseph, as both teams are unbeaten in the tough Metro Classic Conference. This weekend is also the Midwest Players Classic in lacrosse, starting Friday night with 4 games at the Lacrosse Center. 8 games are scheduled to be contested on Saturday, featuring not only outstanding teams from Wisconsin, like Mineral Point, Darlington, Luther, Unalaska, and West Salem, but some top-notch teams from Minnesota as well. Get the full schedule plus info on tickets and live stream at MidwestPlayersClassic.com. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net.
Welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO. And on the Civic Media app. Again, thanks to Lumberjack head coach Dan Garrett for joining us. Coming up in about a little more than 10 minutes, we'll be talking to our student-athlete guest for this week, Kelly Cray from Wausau West. And it gives us a little time to talk about girls high school basketball and where we stand in terms of the conferences here in the area. When you look at the Wisconsin Valley Conference, like the boys' side, a showdown was postponed between Marshfield and Stevens Point. Those are the two undefeateds right now in the conference. They're both 4-0. Marshfield 8-4, 7-6 overall for Stevens Point. Rapids is 3-1 in the conference, 4-9 overall. Wausau West now 3-2 in the conference, 4-8 overall. Merrill 1-3 in the league, but 7-5 overall. Wausau East 1-5 in the conference, 5-9 overall. DC Everest 0-5 in conference, 1-13 overall. And I guess let's start off by just giving general impressions in terms of where the standings are. Any of the games in the past week that jump out to you to start off our discussion on the Valley?
Well, I think, just looking at some of the scores a little, it shows you how it doesn't matter where you are at a certain point because teams can sneak up at you. I think Rapids, beat East by 5 last Friday. I mean, it was a tight game, even though they're in different parts a little bit of their standings on that conference. For West, getting some consistency, and they're kind of making a little bit of a push for themselves with the win against DC Everest. And then they turned around, and on Tuesday last night, they had to come from behind, so another, nice win against East. And you set yourself up because you as a coach, and players, they look and they're like, yeah, we should beat them. We should be okay. That's going to be a tough one, and you want to, you got to take your shots at the heavy hitters. For me, again, both sides on the boys and the girls side, I'm waiting for the Marshfield Spash. I like to see
Right.
I like to see separation because I think that that kind of brings the war a little bit more, makes things count a little bit when teams are taking losses to each other and other teams are getting those successful wins. So postponements stink is another way to look at it. But you see some of that jockeying for position, and
Right.
you see some nice wins, and with the top of the pack wanting to hold on, the middle of the pack wanting to creep up, and the teams on the bottom not wanting to take more losses, and that's the beauty of these conferences anybody can take. So nothing really jumping out, just kind of waiting on a couple games, but seeing some consistent play in terms of wins, out of Rapids and West hanging there in the middle.
A couple of games that kind of jumped out to me involving the Valley. The game Friday, where Spash defeated Merrill 80-52 in Merrill. I was a little surprised by the margin, but it does appear recently Stevens Point has started to pick it up a little bit. I thought they got off to a bit of a Midland start. They're now 4-0 in the conference, 7-6 overall, but they're starting to look, I think, more like the team we expected. And then the Saturday games, you had Marshfield falling to Kimberly 53-30. Again, another example right now where it just feels like, again, even teams like Marshfield have to take that next step in order to put themselves in a position to make something happen in the postseason, because as it looks right now, even if they run the table in the conference, they still are going to be a middle seed in the bracket like we saw last season with teams like Wausau West, who was, just ended up being, a middle seed. And then also Saturday felt for DC Everest because they played a game at the Pfizer Forum. They played Friday night against Wausau West, and then they went down to Milwaukee Saturday afternoon, faced Baraboo at the big arena in downtown Milwaukee. DC Everest, who has struggled, they led 29-14 at halftime, let it slip away. Game went to overtime, and they fell 53-49. Kirsten Hall 21, McKenna Bullis 18. Again, you feel because when you're struggling and you have an opportunity, you want to take advantage of that. So those are kind of the games that I kind of jumped out at me.
Yeah, and the unfortunate part is, you want to see your players get that final game, whether it's OT or not, and it's when you just come up a little short and you've worked hard and you need a win, it's tough to take another loss and keep getting back up on the saddle. But that's what high school players and coaches and programs do. You got to forget about the last one and move on to the next one and try to increase your performance on whatever needs need to be met to get that win. I think what you touched on is some of those inconsistencies and overall records that are going to play out in the playoffs. Marshfield was the heavy hit to Kimberly. They're 8-4 right now, and they got a couple other tough ones coming up.
And I think every one of those losses are to really good basketball teams,
right.
but also teams that potentially could be they're battling for seeding.
Well, yeah, so they add up against you. And in fact, Spash, same thing. I don't fault these teams for playing a rough schedule, but they're only 7-6 overall, so they're able to come out and get command in the conference. But at the end of the day, once you run through playoffs, it's going to be that overall record. For Merrill, as tough as they've played Spash a couple times over the year, the discrepancy in the score, I'm sure Coach DeBoer would have liked it a little tighter, but sometimes we don't know. Like you talked about with the Griffin Length, that you could be missing a player or some part of your game plan goes awry a little bit before the start of that game for some reason. So I just think the consistencies in the overall win-loss records is what surprised me a little bit, because I'm always interested in how it's going to play out when the playoffs roll around.
Right. Great Northern, you got Lakeland still undefeated, 6-0, 12-2 overall. Rhinelander now second, 5-1, 10-4 overall. Mosinee also 10-4 overall, but now 4-2 in the conference. Medford at 3-3 in the league. Pines 2-4. Antigo 1-5. Tomahawk 0-6. The big game was last night. Rhinelander went to Mosinee, had a 10-point lead at halftime. Mosinee came back, had a chance to win it at the end. But in the end, Rhinelander 43, Mosinee 42. Anything jump out in terms of the GNC? I guess that's the number one game, because now all of a sudden Rhinelander is the team right behind Lakeland. And again, that battle for second is almost like a battle for first, because Lakeland's so good this season. And now Mosinee will have to win in Rhinelander later in the season.
Well, for Rhinelander on Friday, they went over to Lakeland and got beat, I think, 34-77 on Friday to Lakeland. So Lakeland's solidifying themselves at the top of that conference and saying that they're number one. So absolutely correct, Chad, when you say that there's the battle for second. Rhinelander and Mosinee, identical overall records, 10-4. It was a war that it came down to that last shot. With Rhinelander showing some consistencies. I mean, they're getting some high point totals on some of their younger players, which will be interesting and kind of a story to watch going forward. I think it's, Rhinelander's, if you had to go by numbers, Rhinelander's going to stay in second right. I mean, they got Medford that they should be able to beat on Friday, where Mosinee is going to have to play against. They got their other game against Lakeland this Friday. Right. So I think, you're seeing some teams be able to take that step and hold their spots based on scheduling yet right now. And some of that can still adjust, because coaches, acclimate their game plan to what they have to do the next time around. And it's interesting battle of chess depending on who holds true to what they think worked really well the first time and who wants to roll the dice and switch it up a little bit.
Merritt South, Assumption, and Auburndale still undefeated in the conference, both 7-0. Stratford and Edgar 4-4 in the league. Marathon 2-6. Newman Catholic 1-7. Assumption tested themselves in non-conference on Monday with a 52-45 win over Neelsville. You looked at a lot of crossover games last week on Friday. Phillips got a win for the North, beating Newman. Phillips looking very strong in the North. But then you had Marathon, Assumption, Auburndale, and actually it was 3-3, because Athens defeated Edgar. You had Abbotsford getting past Stratford, along with that Phillips win over Newman. So, it was 3-3 in the crossover games.
Yes, but that
surprises me when I figured it out.
Right, but you want that balance. You want that. So obviously Assumption's holding strong at the first play, and they're doing it to any teams, despite whether it's northern teams or it's teams in the south of the Merriwood. I think that's a great win against Neelsville. Neelsville has just been an outstanding program over the years for numerous years, and they got their money's worth with a tight victory, 52-45. Seems like a little more, but when I watched the highlights, it was back and forth pretty good. For Auburndale, handled Shawamigan, turned around, beat Riv Lake, so getting some wins, still setting up for a matchup, but I just think Assumption's a little bit more out there, even though both of those teams still are sitting at 7-0. And then you got different battles, because Stratford Edgar's sitting right around or are at 500, but they've won a couple games they should have in the South and lost a couple games back and forth in the different sides of the conference. So I don't, just some interesting playouts, but it'll be interesting to see when they jump back into the South who can get some spacing in there.
And tomorrow night, Newman hosting Assumption. We'll have it early start, 6 o'clock tip, 5:50 for the pregame right here on Bull Falls Radio. CWC East, Whitbird still right there, 11-1 overall, 4-1 in the conference, right behind Bonduel. Wyowega Fremont at 4-2 in the conference, Amherst 3-2, and then Manawa 2-3, Shiocton 2-4, Menominee Indian 1-4, Iola 0-5. Whitburn defeated Manawa last Thursday, 73-41. Rory Salveson 23, Milena Granquist 17 points and 13 rebounds. And again, I don't know how to feel. I mean, that loss at home to Bonduelle kind of hangs out there. And it's like they played 12 games, they won 11, and all I think about is that one they lost. But they do have talent, but at the same time, you want to see them that second time against Bonduelle.
Yeah, it gives you another marker of where you stand. But ton of point production when you can have two players on your team scoring 20 points on given nights, or averaging that, so they're scoring above that a lot of times. It'll be interesting to see in the next game because I believe they have Amherst in their next matchup, so that kind of gives us some marker because we've seen them play the Newman. Actually, no, 2 games. Not this Friday, but next Tuesday they have Amherst, and that'll give you kind of some marker because
they're at Wyoming Friday.
Yeah, because you've seen them play Newman before, so you kind of know you can get a little bit of a matchup that way. But they despite that one blemish loss, they have consistency to go out and knock out double-digit wins and be at 11-1 is a great standing spot at this point in the season.
We will take a break, have the second hour of the program coming up, and we'll start things off with our student-athlete guest for this week, as we'll talk to Wausau West senior Kelly Cray coming up next. With Jeff Grass, I'm Chad Holmes. It is the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
Parents of class of 2024 seniors, graduation is a few months away. Do you know where your photos are? Melissa Sullivan of Picks and Pieces Photo and Digital Organizing can help. Mel is a professionally trained photo manager who can convert printed photos and outdated media to digital formats, consolidate and organize your digital photo collection, and create custom photo books, gifts, and slideshows. Preserve, organize, and share your priceless family memories today. Call Mel at 715-446-0762 or visit picksandpieces.com today to learn more. Again, that's PIX, the letter N, pieces.com. On Friday night, the Wausau West High School boys basketball team takes on Marshfield in a Wisconsin Valley Conference showdown. Hear all the exciting action live on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 7 and the opening tip at 7:15. Wausau West basketball is brought to you by Red Robin Restaurant, Sun Printing, the Clover Bell Credit Union, Graphic Packaging International, the Wausau West Athletic Department, Shine Chiropractic, Menke Auto, and Picks and Pieces. It's Wausau West taking on Marshfield in high school boys basketball. Friday night, starting with the pregame show at 7, opening tip at 7:15. On Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes, and very happy to welcome our student-athlete guest for this week from Wausau West High School senior Kelly Cray. Kelly, thank you for popping on over.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
A pretty good week against rivals, against DC Everest last Friday. You scored 27 points in the win over the Evergreens, and then last night came from behind and had 20 in the game against East. And I was just saying to you off the air, the thing that impressed me last night is in the first half, it was tough. It was like a little discombobulated to start, but you fought through it. And again, it's not always going to be easy. And I think maybe that could be the theme for the season so far. It has not been easy, but to find a way. Could you talk a little bit about last night, how frustrating I think the first half was, and then how fulfilling it is to be able to perform in the second half and help your team win?
Yeah, it was definitely frustrating. I think we kind of had confidence all the way throughout. I know I definitely did, and tried to kind of propel that onto my teammates. But in the first half, I think that obviously I wasn't playing my best. I couldn't really get free throws to go. But it's just the rivalry that kind of comes and kicks in the second half there. And I wasn't going to let my team lose that game, and I think that's really why I had to step up and do what I did.
Do you let's see. I'll ask this question because I've seen situations where things can. I want to know from a player's perspective, because sometimes you come into a program, you get used to a coaching style, and then different reasons, retirement, coaches move on, things happen, people graduate, and then you have the coaching switch. Is that ever difficult on the players to switch over, or has it been a smooth transition? Is it not to put anybody on a spot, but is it easy to switch coaches? Is it, from your perspective, is it harder? Is there a transitional period? What do you think?
Yeah, so it's definitely been a transition. But with Ayla Christensen and I being really the only two girls that had a ton of varsity minutes and experience, it hasn't been too much of a big deal for our team. I think that we've been able to move throughout this coaching change with a lot of fluidity, and I think that Galgan's she's a great breath of fresh air for our team, and she's really what our program needed. She's super organized and super positive, and yeah, she's been great for us.
And you put you talked about the couple returners there, and you've mentioned, like, I want to take this on my shoulders, and I looked at our teammate, and we got to get going here. Do you put a lot of pressure on yourself to be the leader, to be that person, to be like, I'm going to pick any missing pieces up, and I want to take that role? Yeah,
I think I've always kind of had those leadership qualities and just like the desire to want to, lead people, and especially in a team environment. And I've really been looking forward to my senior year. I've known that obviously since last year we had, I think, three of our starters were seniors, which is obviously an old team. It is obviously, it's like someone like me who was a junior last year, you're just thinking ahead of what it's going to be like. But I knew I would have to kind of step up and have this leadership role. I'm the only captain of our team, which that does get challenging at times. But also, it's really great to know that my teammates have confidence in me, and they just have full belief in me, which I couldn't lead without the way that they respond to me. So that's something that's really great about our team.
Building on that, because obviously before the last couple of games, there were some struggles. You were facing some really good competition, like at that Marshfield tournament. How do you go about trying to, number one, to keep yourself the spirit high, because it's not easy when you go through a bit of a dry spell in terms of W's, and also, especially as you said, you lost so many minutes from last year's team in terms of varsity experience and being on the court for significant periods of time. How do you go about during those dry spells in order to try to keep both yourself at that level and also your teammates?
Yeah, I think it was pretty reassuring to know, and Galgan helped us a lot with this mindset, but just the fact that we're playing great competition, which is going to set us up well in conference. And like you guys saw, we're on a 2-game win streak in conference right now, which is awesome, and I do think that truly is because we went down there and played a Hudson team that was super good, and we might have gotten our butts kicked a little bit, but it's good to get to see what other conferences are like, getting us ready for postseason type of things. But also, it just gives us confidence when we can play with Hudson in the first half of that game like we did. We played just so well as a team that first half, which that just made me so happy to see. That just gives me so much confidence for our conference, and that we can really kind of bring back the domination that we had last year, especially just against these local teams.
Again, we're talking to Kelly Cray, Wausau West High School senior, here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Let's talk about your game, because obviously, again, with you now becoming the experienced hand on the court for your team, let's generally talk about your high school career. From the time you first joined varsity up to this point, what is the biggest change in your game, the area of your game that you're able to take the biggest strides forward with?
I would say the willingness to score and the understanding that I need to be a scorer. So my freshman year, I think I played 4 total minutes on varsity. I just played with them for the tournament, which was great. It was a good experience to have. I had a great JV experience. And then my sophomore year, I started the year not starting on the team, and then I ended up starting about halfway through the season. And that was really just me playing a role, getting rebounds, putting in putbacks for my team, just giving them some extra energy. And I was 100% willing to do that. I mean, we had great leaders and some super good seniors, and obviously that junior class was very strong that year. And then moving up to my junior year, it was really, I hate to say the Lexi White show, but she's just such a dynamic player, and she really helped lead us. Also, Molly Anderson and Kenzie Deaton, there's no denying that they did their work too. So really trying to, I guess what I've done in all of my years with AAU, but playing with great players is something you can't complain about. You know what I mean? So I did my job. And it's definitely been a transition now, not having those girls, having less experienced guard play, and things like that, and trying to take responsibility for bringing the ball up the court a couple times. My guards are definitely willing to do it, but there's times when I'll say, I got this, I can do this myself type of thing. But yeah, I just think, like I said, the willingness to score and understanding that I'm going to take a shot when I get down on the offensive end of the floor.
Also, you have added that outside touch in terms of being able to even go beyond the arc. And one thing that I've always appreciated about your game as one of the taller players on the court. At the free throw line, you've always had a really nice touch. First half accepted last night was really fun. But generally, how have you worked on that part of your game over the years? And when did you become, I think, confident? Because you look very confident when you do have that 21-footer. When they say, okay, we're not going to let Kelly Cray beat us down low. We're going to let her go outside. You have a confidence with that. When did that really develop? Did it have a lot to do with maybe the AAU ball?
Yeah, I think the AAU ball, I think my future coach, Mike Williams at Grand Valley State, he's kind of encouraged me to take that outside shot more, as he wants to see me doing that when I get to college. Coach Galligan, she's just told me she's giving me the green light from anywhere, which is just, and Coach Dave Klug too, the confidence that they have in me, it's just unwavering. And it's just the support that they give me, and also, like I mentioned earlier, the belief that my teammates have in me. It really, it's what keeps me going when I miss a shot. I mean, when you have to be that girl for your team, it's like when you're taking 80% of the shots and you're missing them, it's like you feel bad and you feel like you want to get them touches. But at the end of the day, they know that I need to do my work so they can do their work. So really just having that confidence instilled in me, it helps me, it keeps me going and things like that. And like you said, with the touch at the free throw line, that's something that I take a lot of pride in. And my free throws are going, it really just, I think it keeps me going. I think it keeps my team going, and it keeps my confidence up for sure. So I was happy to get that going in the second half last night.
One more question to ask, because you talked about having that green light and frankly, for this team, they need you to be more of a high volume player in terms of taking the shots. Intellectually, going into the season, you can know that. Has it been either more difficult or easier to actually move into that role this season than you thought it would be?
It's been difficult. Like I said, playing on AAU teams where I'm not one of the best players has helped me to understand that, like, possessions can't be empty possessions. Mm-hmm. And if we don't get a bucket, that's almost, I mean, it is a turnover, I guess you could say, and things like that. So, and like I said, just kind of having that team player mindset, it does make me feel bad when I'm missing shots that I'm taking so many of. And I don't know if it's been easier or harder than I expected to be, but I'm really happy with the fact that I've just kind of been able to play loose. I haven't put a ton of pressure on myself. Having a couple 20-point games has been super nice, but obviously then the feeling kind of creeps in that, now I have to start to average 20 points a game and things like that. But I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully we can keep playing as a team and keep getting some wins in the conference.
Well, and you can tell just from what you're sharing that you guys are finding some confidence. You're on the 2-game win streak in the conference, and that's what teams, I think, need that want to get going the direction they want to go. Confidence, consistency, knowing that the hard work they're putting in is paying off. What do you think from your viewpoint or your opinion it's going to take? You're rolling to Marshfield, right, on Friday?
Yep.
What's it going to take? Because those teams are the next ones you want to go knock off and keep creeping your way up to the top there. What do you think your team has to do well to beat them on Friday?
Yeah, we've been doing a good amount of scouting on them. They're looking solid this year, as Marshfield and Spash always do. But I think that we can make some leaps and bounds, and I think that, like I said, when we headed over to Marshfield to play that holiday tournament, that gave us confidence, being able to play with Hudson, like I've mentioned, and I won't stop saying it just because it makes me proud. That just gives me confidence. I think that the scores of the game when Marshfield played Hudson and we played Hudson was pretty similar, so that gives me some hope too. They've got some great players, and I think that Marshfield, they just always have athletes, and they scout us well. So we'll see what the outcome is of that. I'm pretty confident. I'm just happy that our girls are feeling just kind of a sense of joy after beating East and Everest these past couple of days. So I think that we're going in there with some confidence, and we'll do some more scouting, and I think we're going to be set pretty well for that. Is
there ever a difficult transition when you go from AAU to your school balls? Because it's just different styles, and there's different makeups on those teams, and people have different roles. Is that easy, hard transition, or it makes you more diverse? What do you think about that?
I think the game overall, the reffing is so different. In AAU, I'm really just a 5. That's my position. I'm a back to the basket type of player, just because I play with such incredible guards on my AAU team. But I mean, down underneath the basket, you get hammered and you hammer people. And then you get into the Wisconsin Valley Conference where they're calling a lot of fouls, and it's like you got to kind of learn how you can stay in the game and things like that. And that's something that I did struggle with in the beginning of the season, was getting in foul trouble early and not being able to be on the floor. And that's something that I've realized, like, I need to be on the floor for my team this year more than ever. So I think that I've kind of had to adjust my style of play. I'll have to adjust it again when I get to college. But it's just kind of the way things are. And then, like you said, just with team-wise and how my role is, for my AAU team this past year, and I guess the year before that too, playing with Team Wisconsin, we're so big on execution. We're a Central Wisconsin team. We're not from big cities or Milwaukee and things like that, where they just have these incredible athletes. We're not going to out-athlete anyone, which is what my coach Brandon Fanning would say. He says we really just have to execute higher than everybody else does. And I think that that's something that our Wausau West team can focus on too. Harper Mead is an incredible athlete, and we have a bunch of other good athletes too, but we're not going to out-athlete a team like Marshall. They really just have to out-execute them. So I'm hoping that that's what we can pull off on Friday.
Who are some of the other girls on your AAU team that maybe we would know about here in Central Wisconsin?
Chloe Zenkowski. She is from Superior. She's committed to play basketball at Michigan Tech next year, which will be super awesome just because that's in Grand Valley's conference. So I'm really, really looking forward to getting to play against her every year. And then Mary Berg, she goes to Menominee. Her first game this season, she had 30 points. She had 10 3-pointers. She's going to play at Stout next year, so she's kind of staying home. Olivia Grotehouse, she plays at Hudson, so super fun to play her every year in the holiday tournament. She is going to Gustavus. Just so many great players. I mean, I can name everyone on my team, and they're all going to play college ball, and just like a great group of girls. I know we're talking about getting back together soon. It's so good to have those relationships. I kind of did bounce around AAU team-wise at the beginning of my career, but where I ended up with Team Wisconsin, it really just became like family, and Brandon Fanning has been the most incredible coach, and he's just given me so much confidence, and really he gave me the opportunity, and he propelled my dreams to be able to play in college, and I owe him a lot of credit for my game.
You've said it a number of times here in this conversation about getting confidence, feeling confidence from others, whether it's coaches or teammates, whoever it may be. How I think people don't understand the importance that confidence has, whether it's shooting a free throw, whether it's taking care of the basketball. Could you, how do I put this, talk a little bit about maybe a time that you didn't have confidence and how it's different than the times you do have confidence?
Yeah, I would say even just last night, since it's fresh in my mind, in the first half, I was getting tripped a little bit by the student section, which rightfully so. I wasn't having a great first half. And even going to the free throw line, it was like I didn't even want to get there anymore because I was just not confident with the way I was putting the ball up there. But in the second half, at halftime, I shot a couple, got them to fall a little bit, and then in the second half, I was confident. And then in my head, I'm like, get me to the line, get me these fouls, because I know I can do this for my team. So I think that that's just a primal example right there of I put them in and I get confidence, and then really I just hope not to be stopped at that point.
And I was going to ask, for your game, going to the next step from, because you judged yourself early on from AAU to high school to college. And obviously there's adjustments that have to be made. You have to self-analyze your game. You have to be willing to work. Sometimes you might have to ask for some help. Sometimes you might have to just know that this is what I got to do. What do you think is the next part of your game or something? What do you want to refine for when you get to college? Because every level, is bigger, faster, stronger as you jump from one program to the next. What do you want to add to your game, or what do you have to do to be successful at the next level?
I would say finishing the ball to the basket. And I think that that's something that not a lot of people pick out as a weakness in my game, just because a lot of times I am getting fouled down there. But like I said, when I get to the Division II level in college, they're going to let us play more, and I'm going to be getting hammered by girls that may be 5 years older than me. And I think that I really just need to have like a no one cares, work harder type of mindset. Like I mentioned to Chad at the beginning of this season, actually, when I signed my letter of intent, was that I was going to work on my shooting from the arc and my three-point touch. And that's something that I'll continue to work on and getting reps and things like that. But I think just like getting bodied underneath the hoop and being able to finish. There were a couple times last night where there were things that I should have gotten to go that I just couldn't get to go. And that's things that I know that I have to be able to execute in college. So I think that that's my biggest thing. Counter moves underneath the basket. There's going to be, like I said, girls that are actually my height and not 5'10" guarding me. Kind of trying to master that fadeaway. Right now I'm trying to work on going into contact so that I can get to that foul line. But using the fadeaway and things like that, I've been working with Maddie Shires. She's actually our newest addition to our coaching staff, and she's just been telling me she's had a bunch of college experience. She started at Youngstown and then ended up at Bemidji. But she's just such a great resource for me, telling me things about how college play is. I mean, she's a point guard. She's the all-time leading scorer at Wausau West, so just such a great resource for me to have, and such a great person for me to tell me. Obviously, she doesn't have that forward experience, but just telling me how her teammates have kind of worked down there underneath the basket at the college level, at the Division I and Division II level. So that's been awesome for me. Again,
we're talking to Kelly Cray of Wausau West, our student-athlete guest this week here on Bull Falls Radio. Let's talk about the university. We've kind of gone around it. Grand Valley State, you said it, Division II. And I know we talked about this previously. What was it, again, that really grabbed you, that said, hey, this is the place for me? Because that's always one of the interesting aspects when we talk to our student athletes who get the opportunity at the next level, because this is a big decision. I mean, at this point of your life, to make that decision to where to go to school and where to compete on the basketball court, what was it that said, doggone it, this is the place I want to be?
Yeah, I think two big things. I think number one is the relationships that I know I can build there. Number two is the success of their program. So going back to the first thing, I just think that I have so many undeniable connections with their coaching staff already. Head coach Mike Williams is actually from Antigo, Wisconsin. He knows my former head coach, Tom Weinkoff, so that's just a really cool connection. And then also the girls, like when I went there, I just immediately felt like I was at home. And like I mentioned to you before, it sounds cliche to say, but like when you're on a campus and you get that offer and you're just there, I mean, you feel it. You can really feel and see yourself being there. I went to Grand Valley not knowing what it was, and I came home on the car ride telling my parents that it was my dream school. I wanted to go. So like I said, it was kind of just a flip of a switch feeling, and I couldn't be more excited. The coaching staff has a ton of confidence in me. I'm super excited to play with the girls that are in my recruiting class. We've all become pretty good friends already, and I can't wait to be with them. This summer, we're actually doing an abroad trip to Italy. So I'll get to campus June 10th, which is something that's not super normal for a Division II team. They don't really require you to come early in the summer. But I'll have a couple weeks of practice there, and then we get to go play 3 games in Italy, which is something that if I redshirt or not my freshman year, I'll be able to play in those games, which is just a great opportunity for me. And that was definitely a little bit of a pull in the recruitment process. I mean, them getting to tell me that my incoming freshman summer we get to go abroad is super awesome. So all those things combined, it's just undeniable that being a Laker is something that I definitely am excited to pursue.
Do you want to take advantage of those 3 games to say, hey, don't redshirt me? Or do you look, I mean, really, it's like, sometimes it's like the coach will say, well, this is the best thing to do. But then you think, man, that's a whole year.
Right.
And I remember back when I was young, it felt like the whole year was a long time. How do you look at it? Do you feel like, hey, I would love to be part of it as a true freshman? Or do you look at it as, hey, I can use this time to build my game, build your body? Because obviously something I've talked about with others who have gone to play college basketball is people don't realize how much weight work you have to do. Right. I mean, it really is an incredible amount. How do you look at that first year?
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, it's all just what the program needs. So I'm not totally sure what the freshmen are doing there this year. I know one of the forwards, she's getting some good playing time as a true freshman. I think that it's just what I said it's going to be like positionally what the team is going to need. What the coaches have said to me from the start is that at the end of the day, it's the athlete's choice. So it'll be my choice if I want a redshirt or not. But something that Coach Sayers, who's the assistant head coach there, has said to me from the start, from the first call, when he called me up from Grand Rapids and I didn't even know that it was in Michigan, he said to me, when you come to a number 1 nationally ranked team in the country, you can't expect to get super significant minutes your freshman and sophomore year. I mean, you got to work for it. And the things that I've seen just watching a practice there, it's so competitive. And those girls love each other at the end of the day, but it's competitive and there's a fire in practice. And I think whether I redshirt or not, it's just going to be so great for me to grow my freshman year. I'm not thinking that I'm going to get a ton of significant minutes, which isn't something that I planned on needing to have my freshman year. I want to be a part of a winning program, and I want to win a national championship. So I'm willing to do what it takes to get there.
Does anything come into play? Because going to that red shirt question, if you got a major you want to get,
yep,
and it might take a little longer to get the major, then you be like, I got a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
Just generally, you don't have to answer that part, but do you have an idea of what direction you want to go already, and what you want to come out with upon graduation?
Yeah, so Grand Valley has a super awesome business school. They actually have a program that you can get your MBA in 5 years, so that's kind of my plan as of now. I don't know exactly what focus I'm going to do as far as if it's marketing or entrepreneurship or something like that. I know that business is something that I definitely want to pursue. And with that 5-year program, people have said, well, you should just definitely redshirt your freshman year then and then get to play those next 5 years. But the coaches have talked to me, and they've said that if I do play my freshman year, they'll find a way for me to be able to stay that 5th year. And whether that's a grad assistant or not, maybe just even getting a little bit of coaching experience as a grad assistant, I think would be super cool. I think that I've mentioned that to you before, Chad, but that's just something that I might be interested in dabbling in the future a little bit. I've run a lot of the stuff for our youth girls at West, and my mom has kind of been the one that's put this impression on me, but I just love sharing my love for the game with others, especially those younger girls. That's been something that's impacted me a ton at West, and I would love to kind of continue to get to do those things at Grand Valley, even in my upperclassmen years.
Obviously, it sounds like you love every moment of being around basketball, but when you do step away from basketball, when there are those moments where you're able to, maybe decompress a little bit, what do you like to do?
Honestly, during the school year schoolwork. I'm in a lot of AP classes, some college classes, just trying to get some credits for college next year and trying to set myself up well. So schoolwork and then hang out with my friends. I've been so blessed with just our class is really close. We have a great core friend group, and I think that not a lot of classes in high school can say that. And so we've kind of stuck with the same 10 people, and we're all athletes, and we all support each other a ton. We're all good students, and it's just fun to be kind of in the same environment growing up with people that have similar goals and motivations to you. So we're trying to hang out whenever we can. I'm kind of the planner of the group, so it's a lot of times put on me to plan things and things like that, but I love doing that for my friends. And, yeah, I think just trying to spend as much time with them as I can. I know that, not that we're dreading, I mean, everyone's super excited to go to college. Not a lot of my friends have made their college decisions yet, but we're all just cherishing this time that we have left together.
And that's what I was going to lead into. The sad note, graduation is not going to stop. It's coming. So
right.
What are you going to miss most about the time that you've played high school athletics?
I would say, oh gosh, I don't know. There's so much that I'll miss. I would say just like the pride surrounding, you go to college and you're there for 4 years, but when you grow up cheering for Wausau West, I mean, we have a magnet hanging on our fridge right now. That's a picture that I drew in 3rd grade, and it's like, what's your biggest dream in 10 years? And it was me playing basketball in a Wausau West number 4 jersey. And
did you get number 4?
I did get number 4. Yeah, it is a size small actually, and I might be the biggest girl on the team, but that's a sacrifice you got to make. But the impression that was put on me by the older girls and by the high school players, starting when I was in 1st grade and going to those camps, all I've ever wanted to be is a Wausau West high school girls basketball player. And then just being able to live out that dream now, and now being in my senior year, it feels surreal. And I was actually talking to Galligan today after our lift, and she was telling me, just kind of looking at the rest of the season from a glance, and she said, well, isn't Lakeland in 2 weeks? I don't know if it's 2 or 3. And I'm like, there's no way. And she's like, yep, it is. I'm like, that's our senior night. It's just crazy how fast things are going. But yeah, I don't know. It's just great, and the pride is just amazing. And like I said, having those friends that you've had since elementary school coming to your games and things like that, it's just, the support is undeniable and something that I'm so grateful for.
You are a multi-sport athlete as well. What other sports are you involved in?
Just volleyball.
Yep. And when you look at between volleyball and basketball, and probably more on the basketball side, who is the favorite rival? Who's the team that you like to play the most?
That's a tough one. I need a second to think about that. I don't know. Volleyball's fun. I feel like this year, I grew into my coordination with volleyball a little bit more, and I realized that since it's a non-contact sport, it really gives me the opportunity to be an athlete. And hitting those quicks and things like that, and being able to slam the ball down on the ground and getting blocks, I'm like, okay, I can jump a little bit. Like when I'm not getting hammered by someone underneath the basket, I can jump a little bit. So that was something that was super fun for me. Being able to get on those conference boards in volleyball was something that honestly I didn't think was kind of in the plan for me, and it ended up being. And we had a new coach this year for volleyball too, so that's been another big adjustment. My senior year, I've had 2 new head coaches, which is something that I don't think a lot of athletes get to experience in high school. But Jess Hugenvik was great. She gave me a ton of confidence. She gave me great coaching. She made me love the sport, and I think that honestly, if I would have had not only coaching like that, but just an environment like that where I was able to go out there and be an athlete and just use my height to do what I'm good at. I think if I would have had that from a younger age, I think it might have been a little closer of a race between basketball and volleyball. I mean, basketball will always be my first love, and there's no denying that. But I loved volleyball this year, and it was really fun to, like I said, just get to go out there, be an athlete, and play in such a team environment. I think volleyball is such a team sport, and it's so fun to get hyped up for your teammates.
Oh, very cool. And there is an energy at a volleyball match that is pretty unique to all sports. I mean, it really is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's cool. It's something that, it's undeniable that guy sports are faster than girl sports. I mean, men are biologically different than women and things like that. But volleyball is just a faster paced game, and I think that that's why we have a lot more fans at our volleyball games than we do at our girls basketball games, just because there's no guys volleyball to compare it to, and volleyball's a fun game to watch. You know what I mean? And the team, I think, made some leaps and bounds this year compared to last season, so that was really cool. I think for our students to see that, I think it was actually on the first day of school this year, we played Newman. We ended up losing that game in 4. Newman's they're a good volleyball team. They got a lot of good club players. But we played great that game, and that was really it was awesome to show our students and our fans the leaps and bounds that our program can make with a new head coach and with just kind of a difference in culture. And then also just Newman's a great gym to play in. I mean, it gets packed and it gets loud in there, and it's fun. So yeah, like you said, just that environment is super awesome. And it's a whole nother level of getting hyped for your teammates for sure. Like that's part of the game. And that's something that sometimes my super good friend and basketball and volleyball teammate Brooke Schaefer and I, we talk about it a lot. How like sometimes it feels kind of like, oh yay, good, whatever. And that's kind of what we like about basketball is you can kind of lock in and get your work done, and you don't have to cheer all the time. But it's just undeniable how it brings girls together in volleyball to really get hyped up. And I love to see my teammates succeed. Even last night, you probably saw me when I kicked it out and my guards were able to hit threes. That's my favorite part of the game of basketball. I love doing that. Like, I love not only getting that assist, which is great, but just being able to see my teammates succeed. And I don't know how you can hit a three and not let your face light up. I mean, every time I hit when mine lights up, I'm like, I got to play it cool. But it's like, it's just so fun. And I love being able to do that for my teammates.
Any other questions, Jeff, before we get to our last question?
Go to the last one. Go ahead.
We always ask our student-athlete guests, especially the seniors, about, in terms of what you've learned over the years, and if you have either a freshman teammate who's just joining varsity or a sophomore teammate who's just starting their varsity journey, taking your experience, what piece of advice would you give a younger teammate as a piece of advice to be able to fulfill everything that they can out of their high school sports experience?
I would say set and define your goals. I think that in 5th grade, I watched a Stanford women's basketball game on TV, and from then and there out, I decided that I was going to be a college basketball player. And that's not a spark that kind of hits everybody. I think that a lot of girls kind of figure out that they want to get into college sports, maybe mid-high school career, but I think that defining your goals early and being able to do that work early is super important, and then obviously always putting relationships first. The time that you have in high school is, like I mentioned earlier, so special, and it's time that you can't get back. So yeah, we have some really great freshmen. I'm really excited for their careers, so that's something that I guess just advice that I would love if they would take.
Fantastic.
I'm good. Best of luck. Well, we got good answers. We got
absolutely
good luck against Marshfield, and it's congratulations on what you guys have accomplished in the 2-game win streak so far to keep building on. So best of luck.
Kelly Cray, Wausau West High School senior, our student-athlete guest here this week. We're going to take a quick break and then come back, look ahead at the action coming up at the end of this week and early next week. With Jeff Grass, I'm Chad Holmes, Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
To the next level with Graphic Packaging International. Work with a team to make Hot Pocket sleeves and the food trays you find at our local fair. Join the GPI team and experience the benefits of one of the highest paying manufacturers in the area, starting at almost $22.55 per hour. Enjoy job security, a clean facility, and an excellent benefits package, including a week of vacation after 4 months and 2 weeks after a year. Apply today at graphicpkg.com and elevate your career with Graphic Packaging.
If you're looking for your next ride, check out Mankey GMC in Schofield. Formerly Fred Miller Automotive, Mankey GMC serves Schofield, Wausau, Marshfield, and Stevens Point with a huge selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. Explore a range of top-notch SUVs like Acadia, Terrain, and Yukon, or choose from the rugged Sierra truck lineup, or even a certified pre-owned vehicle. No matter your dream vehicle awaits at Mankey GMC, 448 Grand Avenue in Schofield, and online at MankeyAuto.com. Mankey GMC in Schofield, where your journey begins.
On Thursday night, the Newman Catholic High School girls basketball team plays host to undefeated Assumption. You can hear all the exciting action live on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 5:50 and the opening tip at 6 p.m. Newman Catholic High School basketball on Bull Falls Radio is brought to you by Red Robin Restaurant, Sun Printing, the Cloverbell Credit Union, Graphic Packaging International, Shine Chiropractic, Menke Auto, Picks and Pieces, and the Newman Catholic Athletic Booster Club. It's Newman Catholic taking on Assumption in high school girls basketball. Thursday night, starting with the pregame show at 5:50 and the opening tip at 6 p.m. On your home for Newman Sports, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app.
What's your idea of winter fun? If it's hitting the trails after a fresh snowfall and you're thinking new snowmobile, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. If you're thinking new four-wheel drive vehicle to get you to the downhill slopes or the cross-country trails, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. Quick, easy loan applications, friendly lenders, and great rates make CCU the lending leader in financing fun. If your idea of winter fun isn't in the snow, maybe hitting the highway in a new motorhome is the way to go. Just give CCU a call. Financing for motorhomes and winter getaways. When you think fun, think Clover Belt Credit Union. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Call CCU for your great rate financing. Dial 715-842-5693 or apply online or from your smartphone. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 to 1230. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Again, fantastic guests again this week. Always wonderful when we are able to have them both here in studio. But both Dan Garrett and Kelly Craig, great to be able to hear from them. And again, they do such a good job explaining things. I hope folks get something out of it like we do. Because, as you said, and I agree 100%, it is much better than when I'm talking.
Yeah,
almost
here.
as good as you,
no.
but great interview guest again.
Yeah, and I like to sit here and think if I were to close my eyes or I'm home listening on the radio, I get a picture painted of what they see from their perspective as a player, as we do every week. And so I just love the information because, it shows the pride. It shows the blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak, of how important things are. And I hope that at the end of the day, those conversations lead to people getting out there and supporting these teams. And people are showing up when they might not show up to something because there's valuable stuff being said by the player and coach guests.
I may have been wrong. The best part of the show is when Jeff Gress talks hockey.
Yeah.
So let's talk
Hold on. Give me about an hour and I'm going to flip to my hockey notes.
There you go. Wisconsin Valley Conference in hockey. You got Stevens Point, the number one ranked team in the state right now. They're 11-0-1 overall, 6-0 in the conference. Wausau West is second at 4-1 in the conference. Warriors have struggled in their non-conference games this season. They're now 7-8 overall. You got Rapids at 3-3 in the conference. 2 of the losses to Stevens Point, 10-3 overall. DC Everest, Marshfield, and East Merrill United all 1-4 in the conference. And it's interesting when you look at West and Rapids because you got West 4-1, Rapids 3-3, West 7-8. Rapids 10-3. They're in the same bracket. West has beat Rapids. They have one more meeting coming up, but again, it's one of those interesting scenarios that shows how important head-to-head is. Because I think even with a much worse record, Wausau West at this point, if they're able to definitely, if they hold serve against Rapids the second time around, will still get their schedule. Their non-conference schedule obviously goes a long way, but it's one of those interesting things you always look at when those brackets come out.
Well, and if you don't dive in deep enough, you think somebody's better on paper because of the win-loss margin, because everybody judges that win category so severely. Whereas that's why it becomes an important play where they're playing the tough non-conference schedule and still, holding there. Definitely, obviously, a second win on Rapids totally solidifies that.
Yeah, Stevens Point beat Rapids in a big one in the conference last Thursday, 7-4 to stay undefeated. Rapids actually led 3-1 early in the second period, but Spash was able to turn it around. And as I said, Spash, number one ranked team in the state, and in a good position. They do have to come to the Marathon Park Ice Arena to face West. West, if they are able to win out, would get a share of the conference championship. DC Everest, a couple of good non-conference wins in the past week. Evergreens beat Pacelli Thursday, 8-1. Last night, went up north to a Rhinelander, 4-3. Saturday, had a game with the Warriors. They faced another very tough opponent, Hudson, perennial power, and Hudson scored 17 seconds into the game, stayed that way for a long time, and then a power play goal in the third gave Hudson a 2-0 win over Wausau West. As you look ahead this week, you got Stevens Point facing Marshfield tomorrow night. Would expect the Panthers to continue to pace the conference. Wausau West has an interesting pair of non-conference games. Friday night, it's the opener of the Wausau West Hockey Invitational. If you're a big hockey fan like Jeff is, great hockey going on Friday and Saturday. Starts at 6 o'clock at Marathon Park with Notre Dame Academy, defending state champs, taking on always tough Clare Memorial. Then Middleton and Wausau West. Middleton and West played just 2 weeks ago over in Green Bay. And then on Saturday at 1 and 3, somewhere around there, you have the consolation and the championship round as well. So, again, it's the winter sports season is such a long grind, isn't it? I mean, it really is. I mean, we're hearing about these teams facing each other for a second time, even in non-conference. And at this point of the season, we're getting close to the midway point of January. You're still working, and I know we're talking to Coach Bradford West. I mean, he sees things that he likes. He sees those things that need to be fixed in order for them to start to beat these really good opponents in the non-conference. But we're getting to the point where you want to see it happen, right, at this point of the season, where some of the times maybe in December, okay, we got time to implement. But you get to this point, you want to really start to see it come together, don't you?
Well, yeah, you want to see your successes and your failures. You want to know that what you're implementing and you want to use and you want consistency out of is working, as much as if there's something you got to scratch or you got to back off on because it's not coming together exactly as you see. I mean, getting back to that grind comment, I mean, these seasons are long. There's
the
still
winter
teams,
is the long
we've
one.
seen, like, we've played a lot, and there's still teams, I mean not necessarily hockey, but on the basketball end, that haven't hit the midway point of their season
Right.
yet. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, absolutely. Central Wisconsin Storm, a couple of good wins last week. In a game that I had last Thursday night, defeated Fox Cities 4-2. And then on Saturday, went to Fond du Lac and faced a good Warbirds co-op and won 4-2. So the Storm now 12-3 on the season and ranked number 2 in the state. They have games Friday and Saturday at Green Heck against Cooley region on Friday, and the Bay Area Ice Bears, another top 4 ranked team, on Saturday. The Storm played at Bay Area a couple of weeks ago and won in overtime 2-1. So for the Central Wisconsin Storm, again, looking forward to seeing them a couple of times in the next couple of weeks as well. So I liked what I saw against Fox Cities in terms of both the offense and the defense and goaltending. So again, you talk about tough brackets. You think about the Storm. Well, they're number 2 in the state. Pretty good chance of getting to the state. The number 1 team in the state is Superior. They're in the same bracket. And they also have Hayward, who defeated the Storm last year in the playoffs. And they're been either at or hanging around the rankings as well. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you get unlucky with these brackets, don't you?
Yeah, they can load up the brackets and depending on whether it's geographically, whether it's just where team needs to be, whether it's not enough teams sometimes, like with girls hockey, it can minimize the easier pathway and make it much more difficult. So, the nice part about it is probably the team that gets there through that bracket's going to be raring to go. I mean, they're going to be a formidable foe, but you got to get there is going to be the difficult part.
Exactly. We're going to take a 2-minute break and then come back and look ahead in terms of girls and boys basketball at the upcoming games. What games are vital in terms of the burgeoning conference races. So we'll also, if we have time, dig into Jeff Gress's mailbag here and talk about any of the issues that he is always burning to talk about as well. So
there's always issues.
Got one more segment to go here on this Wednesday evening. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. On Friday night, the Wausau West High School boys basketball team takes on Marshfield in a Wisconsin Valley Conference showdown. Hear all the exciting action live on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO. And on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 7 and the opening tip at 7:15. Wausau West basketball is brought to you by Red Robin Restaurant, Sun Printing, the Cloverbelt Credit Union, Graphic Packaging International, the Wausau West Athletic Department, Shine Chiropractic, Menke Auto, and Picks and Pieces. It's Wausau West taking on Marshfield in high school boys basketball. Friday night, starting with pregame show at 7, opening tip at 7:15. On Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball and volleyball players. we stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 to 1230. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes, and let's look ahead. Obviously, we lost a few games last night, especially that smash Marshfield, both on the girls and the boys side. But looking at girls basketball, let's start with the Valley over the next week. The conference games will be Friday, and then there's a lot of non-conference games, which are interesting as well early next week. But Rapids is, I think, a surprising 3-1 in the conference. They have not shown the ability yet to make me a believer in the non-conference. Stevens Point goes to Rapids Friday night. Merrill and Everest, Merrill, I think, is in a good position. And West and Marshfield, Warriors will try to build the momentum, but against a good Marshfield team. But as you look at both the conference games Friday, maybe some of the interesting non-conference games coming up, anything jump out?
Yeah, I like the I like the test for West against Marshfield. You know, they've already played there. There's rivalry games over the past couple seasons between those teams. I think that's a good test. You know, or it's good for West because obviously record-wise you're coming as the underdog, but you're building some momentum off those last 2 wins, and you know, I think that can add to the game flair a little bit. I think with Rapids hosting Spash. That'll kind of tell you where Rapids is at after that game. Are they able to hang with some of these teams up there? Is that 3-1 mark legit? Are people who they think they are? And for Spash to continue to roll with in the win column is the consistency that coach wants to see. You know, Merrill, after taking that last loss to Spash, I'm sure wants to get back and on the winning track and extend some wins on that side of the. They're
busy, Merrill, because they got Everest Friday, then they have Adams Friendship in a non-conference game Saturday, and Medford on Monday. And that Medford game is always significant because they're both in the same Division II bracket.
Right, exactly. So I think Merrill, a couple big games coming up. I don't know, you know, like, you know, it's funny looking at the girls' schedule sometimes how they mimic the boys. Unless there's a cancellation and their East girls is off till January 19th, and after this Friday, you know, Coach Garrett was talking about that they had a little time off till their next win.
One other game I think is interesting is Marshfield at Lakeland.
That was the one I was going to say.
Yeah. Make sure. Obviously, for the Great Northern loves to beat the Valley when they can, and these are two of the best. You know, best in the Valley, best in the Great Northern, and for Marshfield, they've had some issues in their non-conference games.
Right, and I think so. I think that's a good test to say, hey, we want to, you know, and I don't know if you want to say issue, but in terms of meaning like a scoring issue, there's been some bigger discrepancies for sitting at one of the top Valley teams. So I think it'll be a good test for Marshfield to say, you know, we might get beat at the end of the day because Lakeland is very good, but can we keep that score tight? So we're validating ourselves in these non-conference games, and they don't hang around and ding us in some playoff seeding we need.
Great Northern, most of these are going to be okay, but boy, you don't want to lose the game before you go to Lakeland. And that's what happened last night. A 1-point loss to Rhinelander, and now Mosinee goes to Lakeland. The good news is they will be done with Lakeland early because it'll be the second meeting, but at the same time, they're still doing fine. They're going to be fine. But you just, as a coach, you don't want to lose multiple games in a row, even two.
Right, and it's one of those you look at, you know, great chance to be the spoiler for Lakeland and possibly set things afire a little bit in the conference, but at the same time a very difficult task, if near to impossible, just because of how you played the first time. So a couple losses for Mosinee girls, you know, you got to decide, I guess, if Lakeland is that much of an uphill battle, what's going to be your marker to find the success that even though we lost, we built into something for the next game. At the end of the day, though, I think come around playoff, they're still going to be a dangerous team. They run and get up on the floor. They have good ball, from what I've seen, and this is just through highlights. You can tell that they have good ball distribution. They know how to move the ball around and find different girls in scoring spots. So I at the end of the day, playoffs roll around. They're going to be in the thick of things in 2 and 3 in this conference, and look to knock off a couple teams in the playoffs.
Marywood South, if you're a fan of conference games, you enjoy these because no crossovers. It's just all conference games on Thursday and then next Tuesday. And in there as well on Friday, Assumption has Aquinas, which is an interesting non-conference game. But as you look at these conference games, anything jump out?
Well, I think it's the second time you face a team. Like for Newman, take Newman for example. You're always trying to get that young squad more competitive and more consistent in terms of cutting down on turnovers, execution, things like that. And so as a coach, you get to validate your growth and judge your growth. So although Assumption is going to be a very difficult team to knock off, you want to get some growth built into the next game you play. Other than that, I don't see not a lot of big games. Auburndale Stratford is 2 and 3 in that conference. It's not going to make much determination in the records because there's a big, you got the top 2 teams undefeated, the middle of the pack 500, and the other 2 teams scrapping out. But Stratford's looking to help out Assumption, so to speak, in terms of how the win they want to get there.
I'm kind of curious about Marathon in their games against Edgar and Stratford. They lost fairly a tight one to Edgar the first time, and I saw the first game between Marathon and Stratford. I think Marathon started to play a little bit better. They've had a couple of wins in the last week or so, and I think that maybe they're going to be able to take a step. I really think that those 2 games, there's a possibility that Marathon could take that next step.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you again, looking at the team, how you played them the first time, you want to see and build that growth. A couple wins build confidence. A couple wins build players buying into things that they're trying to execute. Obviously, with Coach Snyder's been around, he's seen all these situations. I think, again, purely looking at stats, that scoring consistency you want. Where's it coming? They're hitting in the 40s now these last couple games when they've had those wins, and they're holding teams to under 30 or in the 30s, and that definitely helps out. But I think when you look at the girls' averages, I'm wondering if they're questioning maybe where that next point production is going to come from when they get in some tricky situations where they're not hitting a bucket or the offense isn't flowing as it was, and you want to always have that go-to player that can nail that shot or get you that life you need on offense.
Let's turn to the boys. Wisconsin Valley Conference, you got some conference activity on Friday, then a lot of non-conference games early next week. What jumps out?
I guess looking, for spoiler alerts, let's just check. Okay, I'm just trying to find a game here. Sorry, scanning through my notes. I'd like to see how West bounces back against Marshfield. Obviously they had some struggles. They got a little lineup shakeup that makes a difference in how maybe games start off or what you're able to do. So I think the West at Marshfield's a big one, seeing if they can help the cause. I think you're always looking at if anybody can get a hold of Spash. I've seen Rapids play, and just with Spash's consistency in some of these scores, both in their conference and their non-conference schedule, I don't see that happening. So I would think at the end of the day, Spash is there, but at the top with that undefeated mark, Everson Merrill I think is another one because there's 2 teams just looking for consistency within their conference play, and I think that's a matchup that holds some interest even though it's 5 and 6. I think it's something that matters to those 2 teams to kind of keep jockeying for position and get the W's that ultimately end up and help you in the playoffs.
And even those non-conference games, I think that Merrill-Medford game, again, teams in Division II. And so in some cases, those games mean as much as a conference game against a D1 opponent for Merrill.
Yeah, exactly. And even take Medford, because some of the score, Medford's a hard team to read yet.
Yeah, Tanner Robbie seems to have picked it up a little bit.
Yeah,
he had a 30-point game I saw last week in a Medford win. They were struggling a bit. It looks like they're starting to play a little bit better.
That's what I'm kind of, that's the, I don't, obviously we want to stay in Central Wisconsin as much as we can, but I want to see if Medford can get some, because they're well coached. They've had some great players, and their program is good. And I think Arabi's up around 24-point average right now. So I just think that there's something to be said to see if they can hit that mark. Because, again, what are you trying to build on? You don't necessarily want to peak, but any role where you can get your team to play fairly balanced and find a rhythm at this point in the season. You don't want to do it too early. You can do it a little later at times, and it's kind of neat to see when those steam starts hitting it. And this might be, Medford's time to do that.
Generally, Great Northern, as we talk about Medford as part of the GNC, you got battle of Lakeland and Mosinee. I think Mosinee right now playing the best basketball by far in that conference. Lakeland's only loss was a pretty significant one to Rhinelander a week ago. Rhinelander travels to Medford. So again, when the schedule lands with those four schools facing each other, those are two really good games.
Yeah, I think it's a chance for Mosinee to create some more separation up at the top of that conference. I hate sounding like this, but to say, with Lakeland, I know a couple of those, in that 4-1 mark, a couple of those have come against some of those teams that don't have any wins at the bottom of the conference yet. So that plays in.
It's fair to say.
Yeah, so I guess are you what you are? It's nice to have the wins. You can validate what you're doing with your players, but you got to realize the disparity in competition sometimes, which can make those wins or losses happen. For Rhinelander, Medford's, nobody wants to say must win, but to keep pace at the top of that conference, you don't want to go and take that one. You're sitting in a good spot. So I think Mosinee is going to take Lakeland. I think Rhinelander and Medford going to be a dogfight. Two teams that know each other, two teams that are coached well, and they've shown some good play in the teams they've played against this year.
Combining GNC and Merriwood South, quite a non-conference game on Monday. Marathon and going to Mosinee.
Yeah, when people want to broadcast a war and player, things of different things from Warren, the big guy, to the guard play on Mosinee, to the consistency of Marathon to Mosinee. Those have been some wars over the years, and I think right now they have some very good athletes and basketball players on both those teams. Marathon is 12-0, and Mosinee overall is 11-1. I think that's going to be a fun one. Monday night games, I don't know. Sometimes coming off the weekends depends. Like I went to the school I coached at, you couldn't always have practice on Sundays.
Right.
And so sometimes that made it a little bit tougher to come into a Monday night game. So I'm assuming, it's just different with the weekend practice in there if you have that for the preparation. But nonetheless, a big non-conference game, one that's going to be fun for the fans and a good testing ground for both those teams outside their conference.
Anything else about the Merriwood South jump out? Limited conference games. You got Edgar and Marathon Friday, Assumption at Newman Catholic. And then another Monday game, which is interesting, is the Northeast Wisconsin Christian Homeschool taking on the Edgar Wildcats.
That was exactly where I went. I looked in the middle of my notes, and that's there. And I'm like, I got to go home and look up where that school is. I just wanted to.
Northeast Wisconsin.
Well, you know what I mean, though, like exactly where it is, what it's about, because Stratford played them, too, earlier in the year. So, Nothing too big. I'm looking forward to maybe a couple of crossovers that are later in the week in the north where the Rib Lake starts getting a handful of, they'll play Auburndale and they'll get a handful of those. But I think one of the ones on Friday to start off with before Marathon travels over to Mosinee on Monday is Edgar. Edgar over the year, again, the cities are close down Highway 29. The Edgar always, no matter how high or low those teams are in terms of players' abilities or how the success rate that the teams are having, it just seems to be a war. And Edgar, over the years, seems to play Marathon tough, even though Marathon might be the better team on paper or, just looks like they flow a little bit better. And so I'm interested to see if Edgar can play spoiler. And for Marathon, you don't want that. You don't want to, because Auburndale's hanging right around there at 7-1. You can't afford to lose one right now.
Exactly. And got about 2 minutes to go. Anything on your sheet of interesting topics to discuss?
You get to answer first, though.
Okay,
conference teams, better to have an even number like the Merriwood does, where you don't have those buys built in then, or an odd number like the Valley does, where you got to buy.
Better. I don't mind.
Which one's better?
I don't mind having the opportunity to have conference buys and have non-conference games and have breaks during the season. So I would say I would go with the odd number.
I'm in agreement. I like the odd number, even though I was always in the mirror where it was even. I'm good on the odd number because it gives you a chance to throw a game in there that, as a coach, you want to pick, or like somebody you want to see from a different part, or your coach. You have a buddy that coaches at that school. You can.
I mean, it is.
Just
look at the Valley here. These non-conference games on Monday and Tuesday. West at Chippewa Falls, Spash at Appleton East, Everest at Hortonville, Merrill at Medford, Antigo at Wisconsin Rapids. I mean, it's interesting. I like these that are outside a tournament format as well.
And I was going to take the other road where I'm thinking I can get another team in our playoff seeding, whether it's in our regional or sectional. I can get the team in that area because, getting that win is one more big thing and one more big deal. So I think it's a big deal to have the opportunity, especially if you're some of those Valley teams, because the hardest thing is getting the upper level on teams coming out of the Fox Valley or over deep into Eau Claire and things like that.
I think I'm out of time. This stuffiness is getting to me, so I think we're going to end it perfectly here 2 hours in. Thanks to Dan Garrett. Thanks to Kelly Cray. Thanks to Jeff Gress.
Appreciate you taking me along for the ride.
Wausau East biggest fan.
I'm big fans of anybody.
I got family, so I have to say that's okay. Thanks to Ian Welsh, our engineer. We'll be back next week. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio 98.9.
WXCO 1230 AM, W255DN Wausau, streaming at bullfallsradio.com.